piss off government workers, and now Tulsi Gabbard, Patel, and numerous other Trump-appointed agency leaders are telling their employees to ignore him. And specifically, what we're talking about here is an absolutely wild directive that Musk made on Saturday with him posting on X. Consistent with President Trump's instructions, all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week, with him adding, failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. With that seeming to be in response to a post that Trump made on Truth Social earlier that day where he wrote, Elon is doing a great job, but I would like to see him get more aggressive. And adding, remember, we have a country to save, but ultimately to make greater than ever before. MAGA. And true to his word, federal workers started getting emails directing them to do just that. And according to copies of the email that were obtained by media outlets and screenshots that have been circulating online, the message was sent from the HR arm of the Office of Personnel Management with the heading, what did you do last week? And like Musk said, it directed employees to reply with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. With the message also instructing workers to not send any classified information, links, or attachments, and giving them a deadline of Monday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to respond. Though very notably here, a key thing really, the email didn't make any mention of Musk's threat that failure to reply would be taken as resignation. So unsurprisingly, this curt email and Musk's separate threat, it sent the federal workforce spiraling into absolute chaos as agency employees and leaders alike struggled to determine the legal and logistical implications for the 2.3 million workers. I mean, first of all, it's unclear if this is actually mandatory because the official email said nothing about Musk's threat, a threat that, by the way, also appears to explicitly contradict an assessment from the OPM earlier this month stating that any responses to government-wide emails must be explicitly voluntary, with legal experts also arguing that it would be illegal for the government to take a lack of response as a resignation because under federal law, government employees' resignations must be voluntary. Also, despite Elon's repeated insistence on X that this will be an easy project that should only take a few minutes, that just simply isn't the case for many workers. For one, some federal employees aren't allowed to reveal information about their work to third parties without getting specific approvals first. And then there are plenty of people who just can't check their emails and aren't able to respond in the roughly 48-hour time frame. With you having, for example, Defense Department employees who are on duty tours in remote locations. And that's also now in addition to the many workers who have been put on administrative leave and can't log into government devices or emails. And then beyond all that, the email also says not to include any confidential information. But for many people who work in roles that deal with intelligence, defense, national security, and other similar issues, most, if not all of their work is confidential or top secret. And even just revealing the non-confidential elements, it could still be a problem with one active duty military officer, for example, telling the Washington Post, even if people didn't send classified information, the aggregation of all this information in one place would become classified information, which is a national security violation. With them adding, the military cannot function without the DoD federal workforce. This is a national security issue to treat the workforce this way. And so now, as a result, we've seen many agencies and divisions issuing their own directives to employees explicitly telling them to not comply. Right? And like I mentioned at the top of this, that includes Tulsi Gabbard, the director of the Office of National Intelligence, with her writing a message reviewed by the New York Times where she ordered all intelligence community officers not to respond to the email, citing the inherently sensitive and classified nature of our work. With the Times then also reporting that similar instructions were given to employees of the Departments of Defense, State, Energy, Health and Human Services, and Homeland Security. And this is according to the New York Post, the directives not to respond to the email also extended to the Departments of Education and Commerce. But then also in all the confusion and chaos, numerous federal employees across different agencies received contradictory messages. With, for example, on Saturday, the Washington Post reporting that the Justice Department told all managers that their employees should be instructed to submit responses by the deadline. But then the next day, Patel, now the director of the FBI, which is part of the DOJ, wrote a letter to all agency employees telling them to pause any responses and explaining. The FBI, through the Office of the Director, is in charge of all our review processes and will conduct reviews in accordance with FBI procedures. And this is Health and Human Services employees were also allegedly given one instruction and then told later to pause and wait for guidance. And workers at agencies under DHS, including the Secret Service and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, they were instructed to reply before the department sent a note telling everyone to do the exact opposite. I mean, some agencies didn't even think that the email was real at first, with leaders at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration initially sending a message to some staff saying, it is possible that this new message sent outside of normal business hours was sent in error and or is a phishing attempt, right? Instructing them to not respond until the message could be verified as authentic. And as if this could not get any more confusing, it's also been reported that the email made its way into the inboxes of people who weren't supposed to get it at all. Right? This email was just meant for the executive branch, but sources told the Washington Post that some judges and judiciary staff, they received it as well, despite the fact that they literally work in the judicial branch. And so unsurprisingly, Musk's post and the OPM email, they've generated a ton of backlash. Where you had unions that represent federal workers and Democrats slamming the move, echoing the widely held legal consensus that Musk's threat is illegal and urging more departments to tell their employees not to respond. With one of the most notable responses coming from Senator Tina Smith, who got into a heated back and forth with Musk after tweeting, this is the ultimate dick boss move from Musk, except he isn't even the boss, he's just a dick. And adding, I'm on the side of the workers, not the billionaire asshole bosses. But this also is very significantly here, we even saw some Republicans chiming in. With, for example, Senator Lisa Murkowski calling the request absurd and defending government employees, writing on X, "If Elon Musk truly wants to understand what federal workers accomplished over the past week, he should get to know each department and agency and learn about the jobs he's trying to cut." And beyond that, you also had at least one Republican lawmaker questioning the legality, with Representative Michael Lawler telling reporters, "I don't know how that's necessarily feasible. Obviously, a lot of federal employees are under union contract." Right into that point, just this morning, we saw unions representing federal employees bringing a lawsuit against Musk's resignation threat, with them arguing that it violated procedural requirements under the Administrative Procedure Act. But still, throughout all of this, Musk has continued to double down, continually making posts reaffirming his support for the initial threat. And as far as how Donald Trump has responded to all this, he initially indicated his support with a SpongeBob meme making fun of the outrage, which I know it's 2025, but what a fucking cursed sentence. But you also had Trump taking a firmer non-meme stance during a press conference with French President Emmanuel Macron this afternoon.
I thought it was great, because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, "Tell us what you did this week," what he's doing is saying, "Are you actually working?" And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. So I think it was actually, there was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people, "Please tell us what you did last week." If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working.
But there, you had a reporter following up by noting that some agencies instructed their employees not to respond despite Musk's threat, and asking Trump whether he has concerns about the disconnect there. With then Trump responding by falsely claiming that only agencies concerned with confidential matters of security had taken those steps, and added,
"And they don't mean that in any way combatively with Elon. They're just saying there are some people that you don't want to really have them tell you what they're working on last week." But other than that, I think everyone thought it was a pretty ingenious idea.
And so yeah, that is ultimately where we are for now, but we're also gonna have to wait to see how this plays out with the lawsuit, and also whether actions will actually be taken against people who don't respond. And of course, like with all the news we cover, in the meantime, I'd love to know your thoughts in those comments down below. But then, next up, in huge legal and entertainment news, Blake Lively is now accusing The Hollywood Reporter of sexism in the midst of the ongoing legal battle between her, and it ends with his co-star and director, Justin Baldoni. Right, and this stemming from a cover that the outlet recently published about the ongoing legal battle. And I wanna preface what we're gonna talk about by saying this is a very deep, deep rabbit hole of a story. So I'm gonna give you kind of the quickest of TLDRs on it, but understand it is a surface level kind of normie breakdown. Because in December, Blake filed a complaint accusing Justin of conducting a public smear campaign against her after she reported alleged inappropriate behavior and sexual harassment on the set of the film. And that complaint ended up being the precursor to a lawsuit that she filed just about 2 weeks later. And Justin then countersued both Blake and her husband Ryan Reynolds for $400 million, accusing them of defamation and extortion, and alleging that they tried to gain creative control over the film that he was directing. With Justin then also suing the New York Times as the outlet broke the story about Blake's initial complaint. Right, and there's just been an avalanche of updates on their claims since, tons of comments from both parties, and there are people in either camp, right? Team Blake or Team Justin. With then everything leading to The Hollywood Reporter just running a cover story about it, with artwork depicting Blake coming at Justin from behind with a slingshot, aiming what appears to be a cell phone at him. With that, then getting the outlet a ton of backlash from people who felt that the image trivialized Blake's accusations of sexual harassment. With some writing things like, "Weird ass cover to make about a case that literally involves a man sexually harassing a woman in the workplace. The way this cover seems to imply Blake is attacking Justin, disgusting." As well as, less than 10 years ago, the Hollywood trades were regularly exposing decades of sexual abuse in all areas of the industry, and now they print AI-generated covers mocking even very powerful, famous, and wealthy victims of sexual harassment. Though there, while it is not the main thing that matters here, it is worth noting that while several posts accused The Hollywood Reporter of using AI to make the cover, the artist behind it denied using AI. But regarding the main aspect of this news, the biggest name to condemn the cover was Blake herself, because over the weekend, a spokesperson for her told E! News, "The Hollywood Reporter should be ashamed of itself," saying the framing in this picture is outrageously insulting as it plays into every sexist trope about women who dare file a workplace complaint, turning them into the aggressor and suggesting they deserve the retaliation that comes their way. And as far as what is actually in the article itself, it ends up spending most of the time questioning if this rift has less to do with gender equity and power dynamics and actually stems from a religious clash. With it diving into Justin's belief in the Baha'i religion, noting that many higher-ups at his Wayfarer production company are part of the same faith. With them also reporting that they bring their faith into industry meetings and claiming that they made their religion very present on set as well. With the story at the end then questioning if both Blake and Justin could be right in their individual fights and perspectives on the situation. Right in there, Blake's rep said that it was offensive to suggest that Blake's complaints merely stemmed from cultural misunderstandings. But then also with this, I want to note that while people on Blake's side saw the cover story as an attack on her, you then also had some people on Justin's side seeing it the other way, viewing it as a religious hit piece or at least a general attempt to boost Blake's image. But we also saw someone just inside applauding the cover, seeing it as a Hollywood institution turning on a Hollywood power couple. Which I will say, none of this is surprising, because like with every single update that we've seen with this